You're listening to the ProgAxia podcast.
Hi and welcome to the ProgAxia podcast. This is part 3 of our tribute to 1974, the best progressive rock of 1974, with me and my compadre in progressive rock, Paul Goodge. Which one do you want to go to next?
Well, we could return to Earth by going out into space, couldn't we? Because
we're going Gong.
Well, Gong or Hawkwind, a more familiar name. I've got the Gong one here.
Yeah, the album You from Gong. The track I took off of this was Isle of Everywhere. That's a different cover. I haven't seen that cover before.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
Oh, right. Just looking to see if it's some dodgy import.
Well, I'll see if I've got mine here.
Right.
Got millions of albums all over the place, and I can't find anything. I'll have to do what people have been telling me to do for years, is actually catalogue them and put them in some sort of order.
Gong is one, and one is you.
Yes. All right. Well, let's go for this. I mean, this is we talked about the Radio Name Invisible trilogy before in the podcast.
This is the last of the trilogy.
This is the last part of it. And a lot of people sort of say, arguably, the last really, really good Gong album.
I don't think it's arguable.
No, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm just trying to be nice to Gong. But I think once sort of David Allen had sort of got this radio name potted pixie vibe out of his head, I think well, what should we write about next? Because those 3 albums, I just think, just you can't. What can you say about this? About the trilogy.
I think
Blind People, Angel's Egg, and You.
Yeah.
Are, if you've got a pyramid of Gong music, it's right at the top.
Yeah. And I think this, of the 3, I think this is the best one. I think it's got the best riffing on it. I think it's more cohesive, better developed.
Yeah.
Some of Pillage's stuff is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So if anyone's familiar with Pillage's solo stuff, he does a glorious on riff, which actually makes its first appearance on this album. Master Builder sounds remarkably like it. So there's Pillage's, I guess, green credentials. See what I did there? He repackaged and repurposed his own great riff. But yeah, DJ Malherbe and Steve Village have got some great stuff on this album. And it was back to the point about, was it one of their best or their last great one? Because David Allen sort of like disappeared off the scene for a while after this, didn't he? For 15, 20 years, something like that. And it started splintering a bit. Hillage went off to his solo stuff. You had Mother Gong, you had Pierre Merlin's gang, you had Shamar Gazers and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, they sort of like come to a sort of relatively natural conclusion, I think, at this stage. They'd seen through David Allen's vision, and this is great. Rolling Stone have this as one of their greatest albums of all time. So that says something, doesn't it?
And it is, whatever sort of niche you're talking about. I mean, if you're just talking about music in general, this album and Gong has got to be up there with other classic albums of the time. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. I mean, I could have put anything from this album on the show. I mean, literally, there wasn't like, I chose this track because it was the best. I chose it because it's got a sort of special memories for me, that track. When we was kids, we used to, we lived in, or I lived in near Harrow, and there was a park near us, and we had this little ring of trees in the middle of it. And then after the pub, we used to go down to this little ring of trees and relax together. All having a chat and, just smoking and drinking and just enjoying ourselves. And we called it the Isle of Everywhere.
Okay.
So in the pub, you sort of say something, Isle of Everywhere afterwards? Yeah, no worries. And we just all congregate there. There was about 6 or 7 of us. We just all congregate there after the pub. So Isle of Everywhere has always had a little bit of special meaning for me from my childhood. But I could have taken any track from this. A Sprinkling of Clouds, Master Builder,
Yeah.
anything, you name it, anything on this album, it wouldn't have mattered, you know.
Wow.
Perfect Mystery is great.
Yeah.
You'll never blow your trip forever.
I was about to say, because Isle of Everywhere is a penultimate track, and it's followed by the very last one in the trilogy, You Never Blow Your Trip Forever. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's superb.
Welcome to the world of Gong.
Yeah, so I could have put anything on, but you know, again, if what we do when we get feedback from some of this stuff, they say, "Oh, thanks for introducing me to this. I never really knew about things," and we get people that don't know Gong, which is, it's not unusual, you know. But whenever you're in a group of friends, and even if you've been in prog all your life, there's albums that I've never heard, you know, this album that you've introduced me to, and I've introduced you to, because there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't listened to Gong, really, really do yourself a favor. You need to sort of just, you've got to, this is one of those things, you don't listen to it while doing anything else. This is a headphone job. Sorry. Headphone job. Listen to Radio I'm Invisible first, then listen to Flying Teapot first, then Angel's Egg, and then you. And just listen to those 3 albums one night in headphones, and you can thank us later.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you want to go now?
Well, I thought we should stay out in space with Hawkwind.
Yeah.
You Hall of the Mountain Grill.
Yeah. Some people don't sort of really call Hawkwind prog. I don't care.
Yeah.
This again, Hawkwind were one of those bands when we were kids. I say when we were kids, I'm talking about when we were sort of 16, 17, 18, you know, late teens and stuff like that. If Hawkwind were playing Hammersmith Odeon, we'd always get tickets, because a Hawkwind show was like no other show you'd ever go to. And I think it's actually worth also stating that, and I'm sure you're the same, Paul, when we used to go to rock gigs in them days, we didn't really have progressive rock or hard rock, or, you know, we didn't have titles for these things. Progressive rock wasn't really a thing in them days. They were just rock bands, you know. So one night you go and see Thin Lizzy, then you go and see Judas Priest, then you go and see Hawkwind, then you go and see Yes, then you go and see Pink Floyd. It's all the same. Just brilliant, brilliant rock bands doing all this different stuff that blew your mind every time you went to see them. So I never really sort of had that. It wasn't until later when people say, "Oh, what sort of music is that?" And you say, "Okay, well, I've got to give it some sort of, it's heavy rock, or it's new wave of British heavy metal, or it's prog rock, or, you know." But for us at the time, it wasn't anything different. So my recollection of growing up was just going and seeing bands, and Hawkwind were one of the ones that we look forward to every time they come around. So that's why I put something on here. I did Psychedelic Warlords again, because one of the first tracks on the album, when I remember buying this album, putting it on, and basically disappeared in smoke.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's obviously the conclusion of the title, because I think that's the most perfect title for a Hawkwind song.
Yeah.
So if anyone's not aware, Psychedelic Warlords brackets disappearance smoke, which if you're going to sum up a Hawkwind vibe, man, in one song title, that's it, isn't it? I thought I had this album on vinyl. I must have lent it to someone who lent it to you, and it's never got back. So,
I literally got hundreds of albums here, and I can't find all of them. I actually found this one the other day, which was sort of relational.
Yeah.
The old Motorhead albums, where Lemmy went on to the old Speed and did some beautiful stuff with Motorhead. But no, I think this album is it's fantastic. I mean, again, I could have put a number of tracks on You Better Believe It, or Goat Willow I love, you know, D Rider or Wind of Change. I just love all those Dave Brock vocals on this one.
But there were some changes, weren't there? Because Robert Calvert was off at this stage, wasn't he?
Yeah, Calvert sort of, it's like a lot of the people within Hawkwind, they sort of dip in, dip out. And I remember going to see Hawkwind with Calvert, and again, fantastic. I mean, just a fantastic show. A little bit different. But I actually think that for me, Hawkwind has always been Dave Brock as the key.
Well, he's still there.
Yeah. The only person is, but it's just like, as soon as you see Dave Brock come on stage, it's a Hawkwind show. And all the other stuff is the ephemera of the Hawkwind universe. And I can remember seeing Hawkwind with Rob Calvert in probably 77. And it was an astonishing show. I mean, yes, you go into it a little bit relaxed and sort of, what we get, because you got to, because of Hawkwind, you just got to go a little bit stoned, I think, just to sort of just get into the vibe of it all. But
Calvert was off doing his Captain Lockheed stuff, wasn't he, at this time?
Yeah, unfortunately, he had mental problems.
You say people dip in and dip out. I think they also dick in and dick out, don't they? Because didn't Dick Mick leave at this stage as well?
Mick lifters, I mean, there was lots of different people came in, because Simon House came in on keyboards.
Yes, Simon House was there.
And nothing really changed. It doesn't really matter who's in there. It just Hawkwind is Hawkwind. Those synthesizers that float off and just seem to go round you, just, especially in the live shows. I mean, the sound quality for Hawkwind was never particularly brilliant, but it in some ways it wasn't. It wasn't like technically brilliant, but sonically brilliant. It was, whenever you go and see Hawkwind, it was just a sonic barrage. With songs in there that you could sing along to,
and groove to, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned Queen earlier, because Roy Thomas Baker was on producing duties for this album, Hall of the Mountain Grill, which I didn't realise at the time, because it doesn't sound like a Roy Thomas Baker production. When you think of what he did with Queen and everything in the kitchen sink, he didn't, or he wasn't allowed to mess with the basic formula. It was like. Not quite
and
sure.
Also, I think the guys from Queen wanted to do something astonishing, and layering vocals up and layering guitars up, and I would have thought that Hawkwind would go in, plug in, and play, and so it's not so much you could do with it, or you can probably overdub a couple of guitars,
or you can still produce astounding sounds and amazing music, though.
Yeah, but it does. I think it stands up for what it is. It's. Yeah. As I say, it's not an overproduced album. It's a all the Hawkwind albums are like well produced, but they're just, it feels like they're plugging in and playing and tripping. It's just, that's what Hawkwind always sounds like. It just they sort of congregate in an area, and suddenly music comes out. That's how it feels with Hawkwind, and that's the vibe. That's the sort of, I don't know, the beauty of it all. It's just like vibing. Brilliant waves of cosmic wonderfulness. Can't explain it anymore. So I played Psychedelic Warlords off the album. I could have played any other track, but it's spacey, trippy, wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
So next album, which one do you want to go for next?
Well, we're getting close to the end, aren't we? Refugee, because people may not be aware of Refugee.
Okay.
You mentioned them briefly in part one. So this is Patrick. Well, yeah, sort of half of the Nice plus Patrick Moraz, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was Patrick Moraz band before joining Yes, and there was obviously like going to be some problems with different issues with Patrick Moraz and contracts and things like that, because they basically brought Patrick Moraz in to fill Emerson's shoes in the Nice, which he dutifully did, and this is what I like about Patrick Moraz. He's not, he goes into something and works his arse off at it, does a great job. And he does it in this album as well. I mean, the track I played on this one was It's pronounced rhythmically. Okay. Apparently, it was the rest of the band sort of took the piss out of his accent.
Yes,
it's meant to be rhythmically.
Yes, French speakers. So Moraz is from the Swiss part. From the
French it was obviously sort of inter-band banter. So they called this track rhythmically, which and it's it's an instrumental track.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Patrick Moraz is brilliant. Jackson and Davison are brilliant. You know, and it's a really good album. It's again one of those albums that just sort of got lost in the fogs of time.
Yeah.
But really good album. I don't think they did many more. I don't think they did any more. I think
this is a one-off. This is a one-off. Yeah, which is perhaps one of the reasons why it's disappeared a bit, because there's no continuation.
Yeah.
A bit like we were saying about Hatfield and the North as well. So yeah, this one we talked about Sound Chaser with Relayer, and on that one, I get the sense that Moraz was reining in his jazz stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
On this one, I think he's given himself a bit more free rein. So I think it is jazzier. It is sort of prog jazz type stuff. So it's not Mahavishnu, but it's more along the spectrum than I think Relayer is.
Yeah, you can also hear some of the keyboard sounds that he uses on this. You can hear in Relayer as well, because I think he was getting his rig set up and his sound sorted out by this time.
Yeah.
But you can hear some of that. You can feel that, you know. So, you know, and I just something that struck me the other day was, you know, we've been talking about Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And you remember when Keith Emerson used to stick the daggers in? Yeah. In the thing.
The daggers that Lemmy lent him. Yes.
Yeah, I found it the other day. It was Lemmy that gave him the knife. It was like a Hitler Youth ceremonial dagger or something. He gave him to use to go and stab his keyboard.
Just to hold the note down.
The note down, yeah. So basically, Patrick Moraz was recruited as a replacement for Keith Emerson. So they can go out and they were going to tour. I don't think they actually toured in the end. So this was the only album they did. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
Then as soon as he sort of put his feet under the table, so to speak, he was then recruited by Yes to replace Wakeman.
Yep.
And it was meant to be just a temporary replacement to do the tour, do the album, do the tour. But they never saw him again. So I sort of feel sorry for Davison and Jackson in a lot of ways, because they played in the Nice, which was a classic big band. They lost their center in Emerson. They got Moraz in, and Patrick Moraz didn't want to play in the Nice. That was the reason why it was a different band.
Yeah.
So they just said, okay, we'll call it a different name. So Refugee was suggested. They played in that, did an album, and then he got recruited by Yes. So I sort of feel sorry for Jackson and Davison, because they, just when they thought at least we got someone who's good, and then see you later.
I agree. I mean, but Emerson never forgot them, did he? Because when he was touring his solo stuff post ELP, he would quite often have them back in his band, and they would throw in some nice stuff as well as his own stuff. So there's something lurching to Honey Pie or something. So, but if anyone's not aware of Moraz's solo stuff and other work, so a couple of years later, wasn't it? He went off and did The Story of I, which is a fantastic solo album. It's got some sort of Brazilian type influence on it. He did another one which had even more on it, but it's got sort of South American sort of rhythms and everything that's quite interesting. He did some stuff with Bruford as well, didn't he? Music for piano and drums.
He's been around a bit now, and again, Patrick Moraz has always been someone who's sort of vilified by some Yes fans because it's not Rick bloody Wakeman.
Yeah.
Which I think is a real shame, because if they went back and they won't even listen to Relayer, some Yes fans, they won't listen to Relayer because it's not real Yes, and it's like you haven't got no idea what was going to happen to that band. If you want to know, what not real Yes is, have a look at what's going on today, because it's like not anybody around. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that because it gets political, but
but it may be the same bands that, same fans that love stuff off the Yes album and ask Rick to sign it for him, and he has to point out he's not on it.
I wasn't on it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got to say the vocals aren't great on the album. On this,
No.
The Refugees album, vocals aren't great. But if you can listen through that, which can be quite easy to do, it's a really, really good album. So definitely worth going out and having a listen to. Which one do you want to go to next? The choice is all yours.
What have we got left?
We've got Strawbs.
Well, we're talking about Wakeman.
Yes, that's why I thought I'd go there.
Wakeman influence there, isn't it? See, the Strawbs are one of those bands I never quite got into, and I don't know why. So that's rather a poor admission to start on this, isn't it? Yeah. Heroine, Heroine is one of their more famous albums, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful cover on it, certainly. So what can I say about this? I mean, how much of a fan are you of them? I mean,
I love the Strawbs, but I love the Strawbs from when I was a kid. And again, it was because one of my dad's friends used to play some of the older Strawbs albums when I was around there.
Right.
And I didn't know who they were, but I just loved this weird folk band that you listen to. I just really liked it, and I love the voice. The voice just really sort of was it's a bit weird. It's a bit sort of a bit different. But it just was the voice sounded fantastic, and I love the sort of quirky English folk music that my dad's mate used to play when we was around there. And I didn't know it was the Strawbs till a few years later. And then I got a few albums of the Strawbs, and they're not the sort of band that I would say it's my first go-to. You know, if I fancy listening to music, I wouldn't go to the Strawbs straight away. But I really like this album. I like Grave New World. I really liked, and also from the Witchwood as well, which I thought which is the album I first started listening to through my dad's friend. He used to put that album on, and Grave New World. And I liked all of those, so I just sort of got into them. And this album, when I remember buying the album, and again putting it on and thinking, it's okay, and it just sort of grows on you after a while. And the track I played was the one that, if anybody says what the Strawbs like, because all I know is Part of the Union. That's the only thing I know from the Strawbs. That's the one that is the track I'd play. So,
see, they never did grow on me. And I'm just, as you're talking, it's thinking perhaps takes me back to the conversation about Renaissance.
Yeah,
to me, it didn't quite grab me. It was a bit too, I don't know, pretentious, but a bit of me, a bit too light. And now it's kind of like, I've got it, so what? And that's perhaps why I never quite got into them. So the folkiness and Fairport Convention, who I started listening to, and Richard Thompson, what an incredible guitarist he was. No, they could wig out a bit as well, couldn't they, man, on Meet on the Legend stuff. That to me just had a bit more grit to it, a bit more balls to it.
Yeah.
And yet when I played stuff like the Strawbs, which I didn't do very often, it's kind of like, okay.
They started so long ago. I mean, they started in '64.
Yeah.
And they were called the was it Strawberry Hill Boys, I think.
Strawberry Hill, absolutely, yeah.
Called the Strawberry Hill Boys. And I know that because my dad's friend used to talk about them quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he always called them the Strawberry Hill Boys. He didn't call them the Strawbs for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's like, belligerence, I guess. I don't know why. No, they're the Strawberry Hill Boys. And he used to go and watch them. This is why he bought the albums in the first place. He wasn't like, he didn't go, oh, this is a good album, I think I'll listen to it. He used to listen to the Strawberry Hill Boys. Yeah. And so when they sort of shortened it at Strawbs and brought out albums and all that sort of thing, he just went along with it. And so I got sort of induced into the Strawbs through him. But it was Dave Cousins' voice.
Yeah.
I just got this, again, it's like a really different sound. No one sounds like Dave Cousins. So I just got into it, and you know, so for all these years, I sort of brought it forward until I'm doing a 1974 show, and it's like Heroine's coming out. I'm gonna play a track from that. I don't think it's even really the best track on the album, but it's the one that again just it sort of smacks you in the face as the Strawbs.
There is a Renaissance connection, isn't there? Because wasn't John Hawkwind part of this, and he was part of Renaissance as well.
Yeah,
so there's some readable there, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, John Hawkwind, who's one of the founding members of Renaissance.
Yeah.
Sort of helped rebuild the Strawbs.
Yeah. And Chas Cronk, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah. So and see, names like Chas Cronk are just massive musicians at the time, and you know, going from band to band and things like that, and this is what you find with a lot of these sort of bands. It's like Wigwam is in there because he was a session keyboard player that was looking for a bit of a home, and found the Strawbs. But yeah, you listen to it, there's no Wakeman in it.
No, it's not.
I mean, there's little bits of stuff that you go, I understand why that sounds like that, because that's a bit Wakemanish. You know, you can those little flurry little keyboard little bits, that you go, that makes sense. That's Wakeman. It sounds like Wakeman. But most of the stuff you wouldn't even know Wakeman's on most of it. It's cool. You know, it's like Mellotron and organs and stuff like that at the back of it. But a great album. But again, you got to like it. You got to go. It's not everybody's going to like the Strawbs, but you know, I do. Right. Have we got anything left?
Just two, probably quickly. I know there is at least one American that listens to this, and you did have Kansas here.
Yeah. Well, let's top and tail Kansas pretty quickly. The reason why I put this on is I was in love with the live album, late 70s. I got the live album, and it was incredible. You know, it was American prog. I'd never heard American prog. I was never into Styx. I was never into any of those American bands. You know, Journey and all that. I never liked any of that stuff particularly. There's going to be people who are watching this podcast going, "You don't like Styx and Journey? What are you?" No, never got into Styx and Journey. Never got into sort of American, you know, even early rock music that much. But I got this live album from Kansas, and put it on, and it was called Tea for the Show.
Yeah.
Put that on, and I just thought from beginning to end, it's just if this is live, and I don't know this band, and I got into it. I just got into the live album, Tea for the Show, got really into it, and I love this track off the live album. And I just wanted to sort of say in the show that don't dismiss American music, but if you listen to this first album from Kansas, I don't like a lot of it. It's a bit too American for me.
So as someone who did enjoy listening to Styx, so I enjoyed Cornerstone, Pieces of Eight, Paradise Theatre. I love Snowblind. What a track! So I did enjoy it, and I'm really glad you put this on, because you know, people think of Kansas, they'll perhaps think of that one song, Carry On Wayward Son, etc.
Yeah, which is a brilliant song. I mean, it's a brilliant song. The way the a cappella stuff comes in at the beginning, classic.
But if you think this is going to be like that, then it ain't. So this is when they were finding their sound, and I like this first album. It's a good track. It's got tempo changes. No, I like the use of violin in music and in prog music. They've got that. It builds. So I think it's a really good choice. So anyone who's not familiar with Kansas's oeuvre, then this is a really good place to start. Their first album, recommend it for your attention, and also some Styx albums like the ones I just mentioned as well.
Yeah, I never just really got into Styx or Journey or anything like that. I just didn't. It wasn't, I didn't know people who liked it. We didn't play it in our groups, and things like that. So Never really got into it, but this band, I've had to defend this band in sort of prog forums and stuff like that because people don't like it because it's American and things like. But I sort of feel that they're like, despite a lot of progressive, like if you take Genesis, were very, played a lot of English type music. It was very English, and they used all the sort of themes of Victoriana and all those sort of things. And what Kansas do is they take that sort of Midwest or Wild West type of, they don't have violins on it, they're fiddles. It's just taking their history and putting it into highly complex music, which is progressive rock. Yeah. It is progressive rock. And so I wanted to because I do like Kansas a lot. I mean, I'm not in love with that first album. I think they've got some like Leftover Cheers, I think is really good. Song for America is actually pretty good as well. Yeah. Point of No Return. And there's some great albums from Kansas. But that, if you want to get an intro into Kansas, then if you get Two for the Show, that live album, Two for the Show, it is prog track after prog track after prog track after prog track after prog track, and which is where I got into it. And this is why I thought that's exactly what Kansas is. What I've realised is it's their best tracks, and the musicianship is astonishing on it. I mean, it is really, really good. It has that very American vibe with fiddles. You can feel where it comes from history. It comes through American history rather than British or English history like Genesis and bands like that, like Renaissance. It's very British, This is very American, and it's like dips from the history of America. The music is the history of America. I love it. I think Kansas are just an astonishing band, especially live, especially at that time. Yeah. And I think a lot of the albums they do, but this album, I think, is a good album, but there's only a few tracks that I really like. The rest of them, I think, are okay. They're a bit lighter, and and I probably haven't given it enough chance, to be honest. I haven't listened to it enough. But Jenny from Marylebone was one that I put on there, and again, it's one of my favourites off the live album. Yeah. And this version is really, really good. It's a mind-blowing version.
Yeah. And just as some English guys, John Anderson was reaching out to Hermann Hesse, for example, Siddhartha, to influence Close to the Edge. I mean, this is influenced by a Hermann Hesse story as well, isn't it? So they weren't just singing about wheat fields and stuff like that, and Tornado Alley. So yes, anyway, really good choice.
It's very, very expansive as well. I mean, it does really open up. It's not just what some people say is like this AOR, American AOR rock. They sort of dismiss it as not prog. It absolutely bloody is prog.
And back to Styx. We love our concept albums. So Paradise Theatre, Andy. If you haven't heard it, give it a go.
I will do. I really need to go back and listen to some of this stuff because again, when I was growing up, we didn't really have. Well, we had one guy that was really into that sort of stuff. A guy called Steve Barnett. Hi, Steve. He was a Geordie who liked Styx, and he was the only one who really he really liked that sort of American stuff. He liked Kiss as well, and he liked all that sort of stuff. And he used to call Genesis Jenny Crap.
Okay,
which he used to cause arguments at times, but I love him. He's a good mate, and maybe after all these years, I should go back and listen to some Styx and other stuff like that.
So Camel.
Right, that's the review.
You chose Earthrise off of Mirage.
Yes, and again, I could have taken quite a few tracks off this. Super Twist, Super Twist is really good. They're all really good. It's just absolutely 100% Camel. I mean, I love this album from the very first Crash of Freefall right down to Lady Fantasy. You just play it all the way through. It's a fantastic album. I think it's one of the best Camel albums. It's just so Camel. I mean, you couldn't get more Camel.
Couldn't get more Camel. Because we spoke before about how Camel kind of came a bit late to the party. So everyone had kind of started what their their prog journey was, whatever, forming an idealect. Camel came a bit later, and their first album or two, they clearly were trying to find their feet, just as other bands had tried to do as well. So in that regard, I thought they were just a little bit further behind. So I agree with you. This is a great album. So people would talk about Moon Madness or something like that, yeah, or Snow Goose. I mean, if you want to start somewhere, I'd definitely start Mirage.
Yeah. I think that although with Camel, I think if you take Mirage, Snow Goose, and Moon Madness,
yeah.
That to me is the three albums that you want to listen to Camel. Listen to these three. This is Camel.
Yeah.
Rain Dance is really good. I really like that. That sort of was that 77, I think it was. And I bought it and I love it. I love Moon Dances. But for genuine Camel, it's Mirage, Snow Goose, Moon Madness. And
people talk rightly about Andy Latimer and that wonderful guitar, Tony has and all the rest of it. And Pete Bardens doesn't really probably get as much credit as he should, actually. So and he's all over this.
Yeah, Latimer and Bardens, match made in heaven.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, I mean, I know this. It doesn't sound like he's doing a lot, but Andy Ward on drums. Andy Ward's drums in Camel, and Doug Ferguson bass. They're getting that rhythm section in Camel. You can't do too much. You can't do, like Billy Cobham. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you do too much on this, it ruins the track. And Andy Ward and Doug Ferguson were just perfect foils for Latimer and Bardens for just bringing this incredible Camel sound out. But it was a match. It's a match made in heaven. Latimer and Bardens are just absolutely. And they're not from Canterbury, I don't think. Guildford or something. Am I right? Am I thinking of someone else?
I thought Latimer was home counties around Bucks area. Is that not? I don't know.
I'm guessing in my head that they're Guildford. If you know if they're from Guildford, because I'm sure they were from Guildford. I can't remember. Okay. Or maybe I'm mixing them up with someone else. But Guildford's literally just down the road from me. So
the lesser known Guildford scene, man.
Yeah, the lesser known Guildford scene. Yes. But I chose Earthrise just because it completely typified the mood of this album, and I've just always loved it. And it's always been it's one of those ones that have gone out to they're always in the live shows and stuff like that. But anyway, I think we've basically covered everything now. So
I just wanted to have a bit of fun with you to put some albums up in front of you for ones that didn't quite make your cut. Yep. So this is one of my favourites, so I know divides opinion.
I can't even see that. What's that?
Henry Cow.
Oh, Henry Cow. God.
Unrest. Yeah.
Again, it was part of the.
This has got the Henry Cow sock on it, which we're all familiar with.
Yeah. I found an album the other day. I'm hoping I've got it here. Carry on talking about that for a second, because I've got to find an album.
Well, I'm now holding up one that you've already mentioned.
Oh, yeah, Supertramp, absolutely superb.
And some bloke was releasing some albums this year as well, both of which are very good. So,
yeah, Crime of the Century is.
I've moved on.
Again, astonishing one. Sorry, I'm still looking for this other album.
Brian Eno released 2 albums that year. Here Come the Warm Jets and Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy.
Yeah.
So of the 2, I reckon let me put it back up again. Here Come the Warm Jets. It's fantastic. Baby's on Fire. It's got Robert Fripp doing what only Robert Fripp does.
Yep.
So, and a debut album by a band I think we both quite like.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Rush.
Yeah.
And again with that album, that Rush album, I just thought again, I had to go back to that, and when I first heard it, I was like really disappointed with it because it doesn't sound like Rush. But you really get into some of the tracks on that first Rush album. They're sort of Zeppelin-y rock and roll, but fantastic.
And a sad album in some ways. Oh, that's not good. Robert Wyatt, Rock Bottom. which is, you know, if anyone doesn't know, he came out after he'd fallen out of a window and was paralyzed. You know? But some incredible songs on it. So if you want to, I mean, Robert Wyatt's got such a unique, plaintive vocal style, and just the instrumentation and the sparseness of it. I mean, fantastic album as well. So Egg, they had Civil Service out that year as well. Nectar, Griffin,
they
started.
Wakeman brought out his Journey to the Centre of the Earth that year as well.
Yeah, Grobschnitt. Also Jade Warrior, if we like that sort of slightly Eastern sounding, slightly different influences. Utopia kicked off as well. So and a certain German group called Kraftwerk brought out Autobahn. So a good year.
It was a good year. I mean, you know, for rock as well. I think I mentioned sort of things like Diamond Dogs came out. We had Eric Clapton. What was that? Ocean Boulevard. I can't remember what it was called.
461 Ocean
461 Ocean Boulevard.
I didn't know. Okay, good call. I would have placed that at 74. Wow.
And one of my favourite albums.
You could have shot me with that.
I'm sure he was 74. I mean, I'm just doing it from memory. One of my favourite albums, which it's not prog, but is again mind blowing, was Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs.
Oh yeah, I love it. Fantastic, absolutely
fantastic album that is.
And people who just lazily say, you know, oh, he's just a Hendrix ripoff. It's just no way. Go and listen. And he's still touring, still releasing some stuff now and again. Bridge of Sighs, fantastic album there.
It's right up there with some of my favourites. Bridge of Sighs is just beautiful. It just so cool. So yeah, any other ones you want to do? Honourable mentions?
No, we're good.
Cool. Listen, Paul, this has been absolutely brilliant. Talking about 74s, I've just really thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed this at home as well. If you like it, subscribe to the channel. Put some comments underneath it. Let us know your rememberings of 74, which albums you like best and stuff like that. So we'll see you next time. So thanks, Paul, again for coming on. We're going to do 75 next time. We might slip in a few top 10s and so I want to do the live albums as well, top 10 live albums. So.
Wow.
Which I think would be very, very interesting. Live albums, progressive rock live albums, or prog related live albums. So, so comment, subscribe, like, share. See you later. Ta-da.
Prog on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on the ProgAxia podcast. Don't forget to like this video and also to leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us. We'll see you next time.